Here's what it's most related to is the way you were born.
Mm.
So the way you do transitions, you first learned that in the biggest transition from inside mother to outside in the world.
Well, hello, Katie.
Hello, Sophie. So delighted to see you and to see your new background there, too.
I know. I just moved to a new house. That's one of the things I wanted to chat with you about because some of the people I've been talking to were like, oh, moving is the most stressful thing that ever is. And it is a little bit stressful. But what I wanted to talk to you about is also how magical, because of the reflection of like my relationship with my boo as we were doing the move, and how the tension became kind of a conversation topic. Like we were using everything that was happening that could have been stressful, but right away, kind of like, ooh, what is that? And what is it wanting from us? And what is it teaching us? And I was really excited about how it felt like a good way to use the not the stress, but maybe the tension or the pressure a little bit that comes from this change, this big change.
Well, I think I was just hearing the word stress, and we sort of throw stress, humans throw stress at the wall with whatever is going on.
Yeah.
Oh, that must be really stressful. And what we forget is that life itself is stressful, that we're because
Yeah.
something is always happening, and especially something that doesn't meet our expectations. But one of the things that I am very interested about with transitions, I'm hearing with your moving that you both had both consciously and probably unconsciously agreed to use whatever was happening as a way to increase your connection, as another avenue to explore. And what people often do, I find, during really big transitions is kind of stuff their, any wobble that is not just smooth and everything's in control. When things go out of control, what I've noticed is that people's learned patterns of transition show up. And I discovered this, gosh, several decades ago, and it surprised me when I first discovered it. But here's what it's most related to is the way you were born.
Mm.
So the way you do transitions, you first learned that in the biggest transition from inside mother to outside in the world. And it's a huge, huge transition with all kinds of stresses that end up with you being in a completely different world. And so I noticed years ago that I would repeat a particular pattern that happened during my birth, but it was completely invisible to me for a very long time. And so, one of the things I like to ask people is there anything familiar that you're experiencing during this transition? Does it feel or sound, or do you find yourself reacting in a way that's familiar? And then that can be, again, a way to explore.
It's funny as you're describing this, you said something at the very beginning. We are both committed in our relationship, and certainly the one with myself. I love this idea that everything that happens is immediately fodder for like, what is this? What is it teaching me? What does it have? Like, what does it have for me as
Yes.
a gift for my um, awareness or healing, or as you had described in an episode previously, some of the awarenesses you got of an event that happened when you were so young and how triggering it ended up being. And I don't know that people look at life that way a lot.
Well, my sense is probably not that people don't realize that a lot of we think that we live in our content of what goes on in our minds. I'm reacting to this. I'm trying to control this. I'm mad at you. It's your fault. All of those cognitive things that we do, but the larger context is how am I moving from here to there?
Mm.
And we have that experience all day long. Like, how do I get out of bed? So
Mm.
our transition patterns are evident because we keep repeating them. So, for example, somebody might just stay in bed until the very last minute. And even though they've had the alarm so that they can get up and they have enough time, they sort of push the snooze button and they stand up till the very last minute and then they spring out and then it's all a big rush because they have, and so it repeats a kind of adrenaline. I have to really get, anxious to go from here to there. Or other people might just never kind of wake up and so kind of slogging themselves from one thing to another, or other people might have a pattern of waiting for somebody to push them, like sort of fooling around, like, come on now, we got to be here. And you said you were going to be ready. And so if you just look at what's familiar about the way that you are moving from here to there through the day, it can create a whole new source of not only just information, but aliveness about having more choice.
That's what I was going to ask you about the choice, because if unconsciously, so the way you just said it, as we were born, something somehow gets imprinted in there. Can we free ourselves from that? Like, what's the path to tap into this so that we can get liberated from possibly trauma that we weren't even involved with, right? Like we just,
Right,
like it
that
happened.
started yes, that started before us. Well, I'll just give you a short example of what I discovered, was my birth pattern. And I discovered this when I'd first gotten together with Gay, and we were teaching workshops together. And what would happen, I would be doing just fine, and I'd be, facilitating and then right before the end of the workshop, in the couple of hours before the workshop, I would do something to go unconscious. Like I can remember one time where I went into a room where we were not supposed to go with food. It was one of those places we were teaching on. It was very, very strict. And so there was this sort of, and then other people had to kind of come and rescue me. And I started wondering about this. Also, I got really, really sleepy.
Wow.
I just could hardly stay awake. And it was only through some exploration and having other people assist me to what just happened there, what's going on inside, what's going on with your breathing, that I finally discovered. So my birth pattern was I was going along just fine, and then my mother, I was born with twilight sleep,
Mm,
and which is now illegal, which is I got these heavy duty
God,
chemicals that are actually poisons.
yeah.
And so I just went completely unconscious.
As the
And
start, as you were just
as
beginning.
I was being born, and so got pulled out with forceps.
Mm,
And it took a long time to kind of wake up. And so, there it was, just in front of me. Now, knowing that, see, this is the thing about cognitive knowing it's not enough because it didn't touch my experience, how my breathing would change, how my whole energy and physiology would change. So, what really uh, did it was over time intending to bring consciousness to the areas where I was asleep. I mean, literally asleep. And
mm.
it took me, I'd say probably, gosh, at least a couple of years. I know that may not be encouraging to people, but a little bit at a time, I was able to be awake longer and be at choice longer. And then I can remember in one workshop, I started getting, overcome because the other thing that came with all of that anesthesia and stuff was a bunch of nausea and, just because
Yuck,
it's
like a
actually
yuck
poison.
feeling. Yeah.
And so in the middle of a workshop, I just laid down over in the corner and did some breathing and moved that all through. So I had, I kept Gay informed.
Mm.
We also didn't know what's going on here because this was really at the beginning of looking at the influence of our very earliest experiences on our current life. And I'm very happy to say now that for many, many years, I've been able to be at choice while being of service through a whole training, like for 3 weeks or 10 days but at first it was, a weekend. And can I maintain for a whole weekend? And having my willingness to open up to learning, which is what I was hearing when you were talking about your experience with your beloved and moving into this new space, you chose the context of discovery
Mm.
rather than a context of control or somebody is going to be at fault if that, if something isn't working, whose fault is it? But rather you really had it as a kind of a game of tossing where, oh, look what's happened now. And what can we do with this? And what is this about? And it makes the whole adventure just so much more enjoyable.
It's exactly the word that was coming to mind, enjoyable, because there was that visual of tossing is perfect. Like we would wake up. I mean, there were definitely moments that were not pleasant like almost like this like, oh, how is it gonna go? Da, da, da. But very
Yeah.
quickly we would, and I remember some of our conversations be, you seem a little bit like you need me to be more nurturing to you today or this hour. And then he would be like, yeah, actually today is a little bit more stressful. And so we would, somehow we would together decide that he was the one to be, taken care of a little bit more deliberately. And then a few hours later, I'd be like, all right, it's my turn. Like I just
Yeah, like,
happened,
yeah,
or
it's my turn now.
it's my turn, but it really was, it's almost like we both decided we were going to have a good experience. And so when
Yeah.
things were not, it would be like a trigger, but a positive trigger of, aha, like what is my expectation? What, that a move should be absolutely smooth because that's a little silly? Or is the expectation that everything's going to go exactly as I planned? That's a little silly. And so somehow we deconstructed those moments.
Mhm,
We were
mhm.
able to track them to, we didn't go as far as like, the birth moments, but definitely when the situation, I think, is a change, that's and a good change is a change, like, moving to a new
Yes,
house that
so
we
even,
love.
even you're moving someplace you love, you've chosen, you planned the whole thing, it's still new and unknown.
Exactly, exactly, and so we would have moments where the physiology be a little bit uncomfortable, but then we would accompany ourselves almost like parenting ourselves in that moment, like be what a good parent might have been in that moment as you change school and you're all confused, or,
Yeah,
and
and
a
you don't know
parent
if
is like,
anybody's gonna like you, and yeah, yeah.
exactly. And is every, is it fitting the way I thought it was gonna fit, or, any of those things. And I guess the gist was, how do I be loving and loved? Because there was also moments where I could see that him saying, how about we stop everything and go take a really yummy bath? And it would just be like, oh, that's exactly what I
Oh,
need,
that's yes.
you
So
know?
what I'm hearing is that I'm hearing that you planned and
Yes.
that you have a level of communication with each other that's very responsive and that you care for each other through your talking and listening. What I'm also hearing is that you're attending to the context of your beloved. So you could see, feel, little afraid at the edges, a little droopy, and that you're looking at his well-being and your well-being as well as the job that you're intending to do. And that kind of noticing and caring for each other, I think is an aspect of appreciation because one of the definitions of appreciation is to give sensitive awareness. It's not like rah, rah. It's really like, oh, I'm just noticing. And I had this sense of, maybe you're a little bit more drained today. And that comes from your body wisdom and your relational wisdom, not just your cognitive, well, we've been working for 5 hours. No, we should take a break.
No, it was very intuitive. You're right. There was moments where I would look at him and say, maybe you need food. Like we haven't eaten in a while. Like, should I
Yeah.
prepare something? And the very act of nurturing and awareness, even without even the act of eating yet, but just one of us being able to say, how about we make ourselves a little, salad? It brought a certain, I mean, nurturing is an interesting word because obviously it's food as well, a different kind of food. But there was this sense of, he noticed me, or I noticed him, and it
Yes.
mattered. It was really
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah, I was just what was popping into my mind was some statistic, 10 years ago or so that talking to people who were in partnership, marriage, and so on, that people spend an average of 15 minutes a day actually communicating with each other.
One
And
five?
so
You're saying 15?
15, 1 5. So, so if you that most people are actually not using the skills of listening, of noticing, of intending to care for. That's just not there. And so I just really want to underline why the transition was enlivening for you, and challenging at certain points, but not something that capsized the boat.
No.
So many people find that a big transition, especially like moving, is so challenging to their relationship that they have to either recover from it, or the relationship capsizes, or some other unconscious behavior comes up. And so I just want to underline just the value and of you having established this. It's like a combination of a playground and a jacuzzi and
Mhm.
and a pickleball court, so that you have the challenges and you can exercise, but that you invite each other to be in the space that you've created together. And
Mhm.
that's so beautiful. And that, in my opinion, is why you had a good time with your move.
Yes, and as the thing you said in passing a little bit, that we really were focused on each other's well-being,
Yeah.
that was a big I just realized how big that was, because as I was able to take care of myself, that's what allowed me to be present for him. Like, I wasn't burning myself down and therefore blaming him, or putting it on him that something went wrong. There was one moment, actually, that's funny. There was one moment which reminded me, the very first time I got married, we were going for our honeymoon to Italy, Venice, Italy, and we were taking a train from Paris. And
Yes.
we arrived, me, my big hat, the suit, the whole honeymoon from Paris thing.
Right.
And we arrived at the train station and we saw the butt of the train basically drive away. And I remember, the stress of a wedding, and certainly that was some 30 years ago, so I was less equipped. And I sat on my suitcase and I sobbed. And I remember this feeling of resentment that somehow he had taken away the magic.
Uh-huh.
That if I had been alone, I would have caught like that train would have still been in this. Like, somehow I made up this story, and I remember and of course the stress of the wedding had not been processed. We had gone from in-laws and all that,
Yes.
and there was a moment in this move that I felt this flavor of something that could have happened really well that kind of didn't. And I
Uh-huh.
turned my attention to him as it was his fault. It was his fault that somehow the dusty, the good fairy energy had not been in the house. And I caught it instantly. It was just like, oh, like that sense of sitting on that suitcase, just like, whoa, like,
Uh-huh. And
absolutely.
just that sense of defeat, and it didn't
Yes.
work, and yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the
That
second I
body
felt it,
reference.
no, sorry, no, we're both excited. The second I felt it on this round, instantly I laughed and I just turned to him and I was like, "Oh, wow, here's something from my past." And we decided not to continue whatever we were doing. We did go play pickleball. We grabbed a salad. We broke the pattern. I felt as
Yeah.
what we did. We interrupted this, like, seeing, because I think thinking and feeling can be a habit. It can be just, "Oh, this
Oh,
happened, so I feel this, so I think that, da, 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 da," and it kind of happens on its own.
yeah,
And
unconscious.
I don't want my
Right.
thoughts to happen without my participation, like, unconsciously, because some of them are not they certainly were not deserved, and they were not like, he did not remove the magic. That was
Right.
just crazy. It was a crazy thought.
Well, but all of that stuff is crazy. I mean, all of that stuff that we make up is basically crazy because it's not real. And but what I want to underline again was so what I'm hearing is your commitment to revealing. So one of the things that we talk about, Gay and I talk about, and have for years and years, from conscious loving, is the commitment to reveal rather than conceal. And I heard you do that immediately when you had that boing, that awareness. You were actually eager to share it rather than, oh God, I've got to fix this. I should go away. And, when I get it fixed, then I'll come back and, without any, disruption. So your navigation tools, of authenticity, of turning toward each other, And I also was hearing that you had the temptation to step onto the triangle of the hero, the victim, and the
Yes.
villain. And you felt victimy. You're sitting on your suitcase and feeling victim, and it was his fault, making him the
Yes.
villain. And the temptation could be also to, well, oh, I know he's doing his best, and I'll just, tuck it away. And so to step into hero. And so you nimbly danced out of those possibilities into connection again. But the big thing that I heard you doing that I think that our listeners and viewers can benefit from is you interrupted the pattern.
Yes. Yes, I saw and it felt like fluid. It felt like river energy, like gushing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
for a second, I was almost kind of, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to maneuver it, but I was, and it was very empowering. And the other thing is I felt safe. That is the other thing. When I brought it, the reveal of what was actually happening, because I was basically saying, "Hey, dude, I feel like you took away my magic." That's a hard thing to say to someone,
Yes. Yeah.
potentially,
Yes.
I mean, I did warn him that it was definitely some crazies from, the past, but it could have easily tapped into him feeling bad.
Absolutely.
But I felt safe that even if he was them, because of course, we are beloveds and we really do attempt to create environments that are as nurturing as possible, without the hero add on. But he didn't, like, I felt like he could, like, I trusted that he could actually welcome my
Yes.
my my
Yes.
grappling with it.
Well, the relationship experts, in addition to us, there are some of them really emphasize safety. That the main thing that to create in your relationship is a context, an environment of safety. And I hear that you did that not even like, I'm going to create safety, but that your intention, that your actions created a sense of you care for me and you're caring for you and you're going to be here with me on the journey, like not abandon me or do something crazy where I'm going to go, "Oh, God, who is this person who just showed up?" That you have that, it's also just getting the sense of w- w- when I was at the lake once, when I was a kid, I was at Lake Superior, which was this like vast ocean of water, fresh
Other
water,
Mhm.
and the waves were coming in this just gentle lapping, touching the shore, and then going out. I was getting that sense of how much the nourishment of the flow of your caring for each other created safety for you that you could feel, not just think about, but also feel, because that's the only place you let go. You don't let go in your mind. I don't care what people tell you about. Just change your mind and then you'll change your body. It's actually the other way. So if your body felt sense of safety gave you like a trampoline to,
Mhm.
jump into the future with more ease and more excitement.
As you're talking, I kind of, and I don't know, sometimes I ask a question and I know a little bit of an answer. This one is really kind of an open field for me of how does that for you stand next to this harrowing, this concept we've been talking about? Because is he in charge of me being safe? Like, am I like, where does that, you see what I'm asking? Like, where is it mine to create my own safety versus,
Mhm.
I could tell you have
Yeah.
something to say.
Yes. Uh, what I hear you talking about is relational safety. So it's not you and it's not him, it's the we space that you create. And the indicators, the way you have built this that I'm hearing and that I've been seeing over the last years is you reliably turn toward each other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that seems like, well, duh, but you'd be surprised about how few people actually do that. They do what we call fly by loving. It's like, yeah, I love you, babe. And you don't actually even know what's going on for the other person because you never really turned toward them to sort of take in, and feel and resonate with that. So you've been resonating with each other
Mhm.
for a long time. And you greet each other with curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
rather than control.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and of course, everybody has their dramas and things that they've learned and, injuries and that, of course, come up in an intimate relationship. That's why I was so impressed with your move because it is on the stress scale right up there at the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's right next to caregiving. So we could do a session on caregiving because I've been experiencing that over the last year and the stress of that. But what I hear is that you have created it's sort of like a kiddie pool. Like that's the image I'm getting is like a kiddie pool. It's okay to step into it. And if you fall over, it's fine because it's just a little bit of water that there's a sense of I'm noticing you and I'm noticing me. So
Yeah.
the other part, of your revealing rather than concealing is safety is created first by authenticity.
Mm.
So, I've had people come into trainings and go, I can't speak up because I don't know if it's safe. That whole is it safe here?
Yes.
And the answer to that is no, it is not safe here.
Right.
It's not safe out there. You are the source of your own safety.
Yes.
And that's by being awake, by noticing what's going on around you, by speaking what you're feeling, but also speaking what you want. So I hear you having practiced those
Mm-hmm.
for a long enough period of time that this was like a voyage to a new world where
Mm-hmm.
you just had all of these tools available for
Mm-hmm.
you could grab and use. And if there was almost always, something is going to happen because something unexpected always does. But
Mm-hmm.
that you were able to not fall off the boat while, when that occurred, you might have had a little, whoa, a little dance here, but the grounding of your relationship and all these principles that you've been actively practicing is love in action.
Wow. And talk about be and play and love. It's like it was just a dance between those three things, including I remember I called you the next morning because when it happened, it was so moving and revealing of how connected we had been through the process. We played cards. And so before we moved to the new house, we had said the night that we can sit down and play cards, we'll feel like we've moved in the house. Because you don't do
Yeah,
that when there's boxes and I mean you could, but
right.
technically you kind of don't. And that one night, it was after 3 or 4 days of, boxes and things. We're like, "Do you want to play cards?" "Yeah, yeah, I want to play cards." So we're playing this game, which involves, points. Like it's called
Yeah.
Five Crowns. And we've been playing this game since we met. And honestly, probably hundreds of times. Like we played when we're waiting at the dentist. I mean, it's just like a thing that we always have with us, right? Well, that night that we did land and we did feel like we had landed in our house, we played. And for the first time ever, we ended up with the same score. 34, both of us,
Wow.
I mean, technically almost
Yeah,
impossible.
technically impossible. Yes.
Except when we landed on that very first round, we ended up at that for 34. We looked at each other and we just burst in laughter of just how mirroring that was to because
Yes.
he was leading for a minute, I was leading for a minute. We were playing, it's a game. But then at the very end, he got 4 points, which led to the 34, which was the same. We were both like, "Oh Lord."
Wow. Wow. And also your um, room for celebrating.
Yes.
So, most of us think of relationship, and we're taught that relationship is hard work. You have to work on it all the time. You have to compromise. You can't really have what you want. There's so much mythology that's
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
there in the background for many people.
No.
And that's not what I hear, not even in the background. That's not what you're up to. And and having that symmetry, that moment of balance that you could
Mhm.
celebrate before life, goes on into,
Mhm.
careens along. The sense of that you like each other.
Mhm.
That's a whole other element that's often missing, not only in transitions, but in relationships.
Yeah.
That people are sitting on all of this unexpressed uh, uh, struggle and unfinished events, but you don't let anything go by. So that there are a number of different lessons that people could get from just looking at what did you do and what was that about. And one of the key ones was that when you had that sitting on the suitcase moment, you instantly, you felt it and you expressed it. And boy, I've had so many experiences of, we could have headed off down, a blaming path, and then, oh, we're back into uh, that kind of authenticity, but also taking responsibility. You were like, oh, something happened, and how did I create that? And what could I do differently with my energy? So you were practicing all of the tools in real time. And seems like a big reward for your commitment to the practice over these many years.
It really is. It really is. And breathing, slowing down was also a
Yeah.
big thing because it's easy to be caught in the truck this and the this house and the this and the that,
Yeah.
and we didn't like when it was happening and it was speeding up. It reminds me actually, it's funny when you were talking about Gay helping you breathing in that room when you were having, these moments of almost falling asleep. And I had a very different one with Gay actually, as I was on my way to do my TED talk. And I'm being mic'd. Like they're putting the mic on me and I'm like, it's my turn. Like this woman is about to finish her talk and I'm next.
Right.
And I cannot move. My legs are
You got frozen.
I got like, I mean, I'm not saying like frozen as in my mind. No, no, I cannot move my legs like
Yes.
physically. And so
Yes.
I called Gay, who bless his heart was available and answered the phone. And I was like, yeah, I cannot move. I cannot get up, and well, there was a few things, but one of them was slow down your breathing, like just slow down your breathing. Cause you could feel I was,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know, I was kind of paralyzing myself from, hyperventilating or something. And
Yeah.
then he said, look in the room and tell me if you can spot someone that you think is going to get value from what you have to say. And I noticed this young lady at my talk was about, having lost a lot of weight and the life of being 300 and some 50 pounds. And this young lady at the front who I could see was overweight. And she was also very open, very, I'm
Mm.
here to learn. And I spotted her and I said, yes, I could see someone that I think is really going to get value from that. And as he's talking to me, my legs were able to operate again from that slowing down. And so I think that is one of the reference points I have that when I start feeling this speeding up
Yeah,
inside,
the adrenaline.
the adrenaline, I just think of his voice in my ear as I'm about to get up there and I'm petrified and
Oh.
just him saying, just slow your breathing down. And those are powerful tools. There's some,
Oh, and they work. I mean, it's not
they
as if
work.
just slow your breathing down. It really does change your whole physiology, your ability to respond rather than to react. And so those people being the gift of giving your authenticity to each other, your wondering, your caring, those create a whole different, like garden inside where things can bloom rather than shriveling. So there's just so many wonderful aspects of your move and how that creates a journey into the unknown, which we basically enter every day. When we get up, we have no idea if things are going to go according to plan in any
No,
way.
no.
And so, again, dealing with the unexpected, you just had all of these tools available that you could use, but you use them. You
Yes.
didn't just think about them.
And there was, it's funny the way you were, for those who are not looking at the screen as you often do, you were moving as you were speaking. And there was an internal, the word that comes to mind is like there's a plasticity to the moment.
Yes.
We weren't, we didn't get hard inside, there was really this fluidity of almost like we had committed, we were going to have a good time. And so when something
Yes.
was not feeling good, we weren't ignoring it. As you said earlier, there was no like, oh, I'm fine. That's, as we know, it doesn't go very far. But there was this really strong desire. We would pause and be like, what is there to not be happy right now? We're unboxing this new dream house that we built. And how indecent would it be to be really upset in this moment, right?
Well, what I hear you're doing is recommitting. You had an
Yes.
intention to have a good time, and there was a little bit of a wobble, and you simply recommitted. You didn't make a big drama of it. You just simply recommitted. And all of those tools are so valuable to learn. But this was the acid test. There
Yes.
you are in the middle of this, and you were able to pull those up and they were right there for you. I was thinking of you with a big tool belt on, or you could draw things, or your basket of goodies. There they were, and they were
That's a
available.
testimony. You're right. It is a testimony to, wow, the work works, right?
The
When
work
needed.
works.
The
There
work
you
works like
go.
when needed, when the rubber hit that road,
Yeah.
there it was. And for both of us, because I could imagine where if one of the two has not done some of this plasticity, emotional plasticity almost, I would imagine that would be more difficult because it
Yes.
was the tossing that was so fun. It was the, ooh, I'm the one who needs you. Boom, take the ball. Ooh, I'm the
Yeah.
one. And just like to both be able to do that was, thank you for, I love the way you do that. You just by naming all those things that you noticed, you made this experience, which felt good. We didn't start from scratch when we started the conversation because
Exactly.
I knew that something had been the right ingredients and the right temperature, worked and the meal was delicious as we were having it. But you naming those things so specifically has it grounds it in a really different way. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Oh, you're so welcome. It's such a pleasure to witness and to celebrate, this, I mean, really a big achievement, not just the house that you get to enjoy, but the way that you welcome your new home with
Mm,
each other. So the new home inside you, inside your partner, and then between you, just flourished. It just sort of spilled out from
mm.
you into the house, and
Oh, what a good
it's
start.
just
Talk about a beginning.
yeah,
That is
a
graceful. Now you
new
have to come
beginning.
visit. You have to come visit me to like,
Well, I definitely will. Hey, and I wanted to give a suggestion to people if they want to play with transitions. And because you're going to continue moving through life the way you learn to make transitions unless you change them. And so I wanted to just make a suggestion to notice something that you repeat all the time. So like some way of moving, like I always have to get up. I have to sleep on this side of the bed. And if I sleep on this side of the bed, it's, I don't. So to make one change, like to change the way that you get out of bed,
mm,
or to change the pace of how you prepare to go out of the house in the morning, or to slow down your breathing, as you're, getting ready to go into the office. So to just change one thing about your pattern of going from here to there, and notice how that refreshes your nervous system.
mm. I love that. Well, that's a beautiful thought in closing. Thank you. I did not expect us to go there exactly, but how delicious was that? Thank you. This was really,
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your openness, and also congratulations.
thank you. Talk to you soon.
Talk soon.